This is a photograph of me. Down here you can see the date. This photograph was taken about 2.5 hours after a suicide bomber detonated his vest about 20 feet from me, sending about 6 ball bearings tearing through my body. A few minutes later I was shot twice in my left leg, and I was one of 7 casualties on a 9-man team. 2 of the casualties ended up losing their life. I was the only medic on the ground, and I wasn't able to save those guys. In addition, I've endured countless blast injuries from explosions resulting in traumatic brain injuries, and subject to numerous accounts of moral injury. My name is Jay McBride, and I'm also a recovered alcoholic. Today I'm going to talk to you about a dual diagnosis PTSD and substance abuse rehabilitation center called Warrior's Heart, a place that I'm very passionate about and I feel likely saved my life. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, upon my retirement from the military, and subsequently picked up a drinking habit that I could no longer control on my own. Our country asks its military, law enforcement, first responders, paramedics, and firefighters to answer the call to serve, exposing themselves to unimaginable situations on a daily basis. Some of these situations are extremely difficult, and those who find themselves in the position to serve require steadfast commitment, pushing aside fear and emotions, making ethical decisions that are hard to deal with after the situation has concluded. These people need a place that can help them deal with the trauma they've endured for years. Today, I'm going to share some personal accounts of my experience with Warrior's Heart, my service, PTSD, and substance abuse. I will define PTSD and moral injury, discuss how different traumas have different effects on different people, talk about appropriate ways to deal with psychological trauma, and finally, talk about how Warrior's Heart helps serve those who've served. My goal is to spread awareness for treatment of PTSD and substance abuse in the ranks of law enforcement, first responders, and military veterans. Let's move on to some of my talking points. So what is PTSD? In a report published by the Mayo Clinic titled Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, in July of 2018, the publication states, PTSD is a mental health condition that's triggered by a terrifying event, either experiencing it or witnessing it. Symptoms may include flashbacks, nightmares, and severe anxiety, as well as uncontrollable thoughts about the event. And now, what is moral injury? As defined by the Department of Veterans Affairs in a publication titled Moral Injury, released in April 2020, moral injury occurs in traumatic or unusually stressful circumstances. People may perpetrate, fail to prevent, or witness events that contradict deeply held moral beliefs and expectations. The problem is lack of relevant resources for those who incur emotional trauma in the line of duty. There needs to be more resources available to help professionals who experience trauma in the line of duty. Different traumas have different effects on different people. Opportunities need to be afforded to those who require emotional support. There are natural feelings and emotions that accompany trauma. You might be familiar with the stages of grief. These are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Most times, when first responders or military members witness or arrive on the scene of a situation, they have a duty to perform. They are not afforded the luxury of responding to the situation in a natural way and must put their own feelings and emotions aside so that they can focus on the situation at hand, because the safety of others depends on their performance. Unresolved trauma can result in substance abuse in an attempt to self-medicate, or even thoughts of suicide to escape these undesirable feelings. There are appropriate and inappropriate ways to deal with trauma. The natural stages of dealing with trauma by addressing them as they arise is the best way to manage post-traumatic stress. Post-traumatic stress is a normal reaction to a stressful situation and typically resolves in a short amount of time. Sometimes all it takes is talking with a friend to process the events or the account that occurred. Other cases may require a more proactive effort, like seeing a counselor or a therapist. In many professional communities, people may feel embarrassed or discouraged to seek further assistance in processing their trauma. One of the factors that can compound an unhealthy way of dealing with psychological trauma is also physical injury. Treatment for a lot of physical injury involves pain medication to treat the physical injury sustained, such as a gunshot wound, or maybe a fall from a third-story building by a firefighter who was trying to save a family that was burning inside. In this last example, can you imagine what it must feel like for the firefighter who couldn't save that family because they fell? Their screams echoing through his or her ears as they try to sleep. But they notice that the pain medication that they take to treat their injuries also silences the voices that they hear. You may know someone who has served their community and may be resorting to unhealthy patterns of dealing with trauma that they experienced. Warrior's Heart was started by a former U.S. Army Special Forces Green Beret who also served in the elite U.S. Army's Delta Force. His name is Tom Spooner. Tom experienced such things as substance abuse and emotional trauma from his service to the United States and identified that there was no place that existed specifically to deal with those who selflessly serve. Warrior's Heart has a vision to bring 1 million warriors home. Their mission is to heal our nation's warriors through their private, licensed, and accredited resort-style healing centers. They do this by specializing in substance abuse treatment and co-occurring psychological disorders, with special attention to post-traumatic stress, unresolved grief or loss, and moral injury. Their treatment course provides full spectrum of care. As someone who went through the program at Warrior's Heart, I can attest that I don't believe there's any place like it in the country, especially that specifically addresses the types of things that our volunteer service members endure. Warrior's Heart changed my life and gave me new purpose and meaning that I had lost. Currently, Warrior's Heart is expanding its sober living accommodations from 7 small homes to an over 50-person living quarters. When I was there in October, I saw new clinical buildings and additional staff to treat the high number of residents that find their way home. With new awareness comes new demand to meet the treatment requirements for those who serve. Without these specialized services, our veterans, police, and first responders are left in a world that doesn't understand the types of things they require to get back to a normal, healthy lifestyle. Resorting to suicide and substance abuse is no way to thank those who have given so much in service to this country and our community. So let's recap a little bit on some of the key points I want you to take away. I defined PTSD and introduced you to the topic of moral injury. We discussed how emotional trauma affects people differently and that there are healthy and unhealthy ways to deal with these experiences. And I shared how Warrior's Heart is an organization that helps those who wore a uniform to protect and serve our country and our community to overcome emotional trauma and substance abuse. If you can't afford to make a contribution to Warrior's Heart, I ask that you reach out and check on those who you know have served. Let them know that you appreciate what they've sacrificed and that there is help if they are going through a hard time. Our country asks its military and first responders to answer the call to serve. These people need a place that can help them deal with the trauma they have endured in a healthy manner. I will leave you with this quote by retired U.S. Army Special Forces Green Beret and Medal of Honor recipient, Master Sergeant Roy P. Benavidez. For those who have fought for it, life has a special flavor that the protected will never know. You have never lived until you've almost died. And it's us veterans that pray for peace most of all, especially the wounded, because we have to suffer the wounds of war. Thank you.